Okay, we've just gone live. Welcome to EdcampGlobal. I'm Brian, host. I'll be very much engaging with some amazing educators today. We've got on the line, we've got Dan Hassler. He's an international keynote speaker, educator and writer. He's passionate about engaging on issues of wellbeing and engagement. We've got Marty Keltz. He's an Emmy Award winning producer, educator, co-founder of the Not Perfect Hat Club movement, and former editor of Scholastic Education. We've got Jenna Ball. She's an author and artist, an educator, co-founder of the Not Perfect Hat Club movement, and all-round amazing woman. We've got Bev Ladd. She's crossing platforms at the moment. She's a master Skype educator, but she's also passionate about global learning and collaboration. We've got Brett Salakis, founder of Aussie Ed. He's an educator and speaker. He's a Class Dojo community lead. Very, very passionate about using technology to improve overall outcomes for his students. We've got a video hangout later on with international educator Craig Kemp, and he's the founder of What Is School, and he's going to be talking about mystery locations for us. We've got Viv Hall. She's a Kiwi expat. She has been spending a lot of time over in Asia recently, but she is home back in New Zealand. And finally, we've got the amazing Alex Lalong. She's a head English teacher and Class Dojo community lead. She's a keen contributor into global education, and she uses things like blogging and Twitter. So thank you very much for all coming on today. It is absolutely fantastic to have all of you on board. Dan, I might throw to you first and ask you, Dan, what are some of the ways, from you as an international speaker, what have you been seeing students, what's the trend within global education?
Wow. Okay. Just the trend. Well, I guess in terms of regards to what I'd like to talk about is using this idea of empathy and this idea that the three main things which are impacting global education is obviously technology, what we understand about the brain, and globalization. And with technology and globalization in particular, I'm really excited to see how we can actually challenge some of our biggest issues in society. And by that, I mean, living in Australia at the moment is quite an interesting time to see the way different community groups are either coming together or unfortunately pulling apart. And also in my native land of England, I'm seeing on the news at the moment, the way in which countries are responding to the migrant issues and the migrant emergencies. And the problem I have is that a lot of what kids are learning is coming straight from adults, and what adults are passing down are, if we're not careful, biased, maybe stereotypical opinions and beliefs, which are actually serving to reinforce this belief that we're all so different from one another. So to sort of, in an international sense, I think that this is a pressing issue no matter which country you go to, whether you're working in a country which has an indigenous population, like in Australia or America, which have been largely disempowered, or whether you're in a country where there's, refugees entering the country and what kind of rhetoric surrounds that. So as way of sort of recognizing some of these issues, I coach my 7-year-old's rugby league team, and there's 10 kids in this team, and every single one of them has a different background. Every single kid has parents from different origins. And what's interesting is not once has my son or anyone else in the training or whatever made reference to the fact that they're all different. They just hang out, they play, they enjoy each other, all that kind of stuff. And I then sort of contrast that with when I'm, say, in a supermarket and I see a kid maybe staring or pointing or asking a parent a question like, oh, why is he wearing that? Why is she doing that? Why did they look that way? And the parent's reaction tends to be, don't stare, or don't be rude, don't ask questions. You know, that's just the way they are, that's what they do. And it's kind of like we're teaching blind acceptance of the way other people are. And I don't believe that you can truly empathize with people simply through blind acceptance. And so, given that parents and adults don't seem to be too willing to have those conversations, because let's be frank, they don't know the answers, I'm wondering what would happen if we empowered kids just to talk to other kids and just get the adults to shut up for a while and see if, you know, we can see how kids talking to other kids can start breaking down barriers. So, for example, in Israel and in Palestine, there are several schools where Palestinian kids and Jewish kids go and learn together. So that's something in the real, you know, face-to-face, everyday kind of thing. But some of the work I'm doing at the moment with Indigenous kids is getting them to blog, getting them to tell their stories, not only to get them reading and writing and all that kind of stuff, but to share their experiences with other Indigenous communities around the world, to find out what it means to them to be Indigenous. Because what we're finding is, particularly in Australia, is as the Indigenous youth are pulling away from the Indigenous elders, we're actually losing culture. And in Australia, you know, it's the oldest living culture, you know, that we know of, and we're losing that, you know. So when kids ask other kids, you know, what's your first language, or what, you know, what are your Dreamtime stories, they don't know. So this enables them to go back, reconnect with their culture, and then tell others about it. And I wonder, given that in Australia every non-Indigenous kid has to learn about Indigenous culture, and again, without being too blunt about it, typically they're learning about Indigenous culture from a white person. I wonder what would happen if we just got rid of the adults from the story just for a while and let kids ask each other whatever questions they want, and you know, and let them explore and let them build an understanding. Because I don't think, well, you know, I think it's harder. I think it's harder to be racist, harder to be disrespectful. I think it's harder to turn away from the issues that other population groups face if you actually know them, if you actually make connections with them, if you actually converse with them. It's very easy to turn your back on someone you don't know or a population group you don't understand, particularly if adults are throwing into the mix, you know, oh, well, you know, they're bludgers, or they're just, you know, the worst one I'm hearing at the moment is, you know, the economic refugees. Please, what does that mean? You know, they're risking life and limb. So I'm tipping there's a pretty serious thing they're trying to get away from. And we just decide, oh man, not, you know, not for us. Turn away, away you go. And unfortunately, you know, whether it's other people, you know, people from other countries, or people from our own country, our very first people, it seems to be this blind acceptance of, oh well, that's just the way they are, with very little understanding. And I think that's serving to snowball, if you like, any potential issues that are there. So that's me.
That's really good, Dan. I know that's positive to be able to share that, because it really encompasses what I think many of us as educators are very much passionate about. We do desire the best for all of our children. We want our students to have connections with each other and have that cultural connection.
And from the introductions that you gave, every single person who's going to speak after now is doing this and has not just nice ideas or ethereal thinking, actually cast iron ways of doing this. And so anyone else who's listening in, who's going, oh, that's a nice idea, but, you know, like for me, that's when leadership starts, at the but, you know, and you're going to hear, I know, because obviously I've been chatting with you a fair bit, Brian, about this. I know people are going to hear wonderful examples of how we can leverage the technology, not just so we can do the same old, but we can really challenge some of the big issues in society as well as in the curriculum. So I've just, yeah, I really hope. I'm really so. This is a bit like a special forces kind of talk. Because I get in, I'm going to do my stuff, and then I've got to get out because I've got a little 4-year-old who's just going to go mental in a minute. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have a chat. And if there's opportunities in the future, then give me a bit more than a couple of hours' notice or whatever it was. I'd love to.
No problems. Well, thank you very much, Dan, for joining us today. I'm going to, something that I will definitely put out there for anyone who is listening. We are all educators, and none of us are perfect, and everything that we try, guarantee there are mistakes. And one or two of our amazing educators that we do have on the line know quite a bit about that. We've got author Jenna Ball. She's she is founder or co-founder of the Not Perfect Hat Club movement, and we've also got Marty Kelch. And I want to just allow these guys to share with you a small bit of what they've been doing together to start this global movement around kids being able to fail gracefully and learn that mistakes are part of just education. Mistakes are part of life, but how we resiliently bounce back from that is the key. So Jenna and Marty, I'd like to throw over to you if that's okay.
Yeah, Marty, you wanna? I think he's still muted.
Marty, you're still muted at the moment.
Well, I'll get started then. So the Not Perfect Hat Club is actually an offshoot of something that happened in classes I was teaching in Texas and Illinois and New York. And every time I would start to draw with the kids, they'd start to say things like, "I can't draw, mine's ugly, this is terrible." And I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on because, you know, kids love to draw. And I realized finally that they were using an outward system to judge themselves. So I finally said this to them, what does not perfect mean to you? And they gave me these really things like broken, bad, messed up, you know, incapable. I mean, all these negative things. And I said, wow, do you really think not perfect means that? Oh yeah. And I said, well, who do you know is perfect? And so we talked about Michael Jordan and Abraham Lincoln and Einstein and everything, and they finally started to be, oh. I said, so what I want you to do, well, I'll show you what I did with them. I said, oh, I want you to imagine that you're putting on a hat like me. This is my not perfect hat. And when I put it on, I can just have fun, and I don't care if I make mistakes, because mistakes are the way we learn, and it's fun. And they thought this was just hilarious, you know. And I said, what does this tell you about me? You like flowers? You went to the beach too much? I mean, they're really cute. And I said, okay, so what would your not perfect hat look like? Because then it's an internal thing as opposed to an external judgment, you know. And there was no whining, no complaining, and you wouldn't believe the kind of hats that came out of this, you know, lightning bolts and marshmallows and gadgets and widgets, and it was wonderful, you know. So that was the beginning of it. And now I think Marty should talk a little bit about how it's kind of tied to a larger media strategy. We're going to take over the world with empathy and compassion.
I think that you know, what we're discovering as this whole thing is evolving is just how significant an issue this is across the population. And you know, I was tweeting earlier a New York Times article that was published recently this week that very specifically, and I don't want to get very dark on everybody, but it was very specific about the number of kids in colleges now, especially at the elite schools, that are depressed or, in fact, even committing suicide. And part of that is because of the drive that they've been exposed to throughout their academic careers towards a perfect model. So what we see with the Not Perfect Hat Club is an opportunity to literally create an intervention with the kids in the elementary school so that they're thinking and understanding right from the beginning that it's okay to fail forward. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to be uniquely, individually somebody that's different than somebody else, that it isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of model that we want for them or that will work for them in the world going forward. The second piece that I'll just add to that is that because of my own difficulties in school, you know, and finding my way towards motion pictures and television as a way to express myself, I'm very interested in what we do in communicating the Not Perfect Hack Club, giving kids also the ability to do that with video. So we've been able to create a relationship with TouchCast, which is a free app that anybody can use anywhere in the world. And with that app, there's actually a theme on it related to the Not Perfect Hack Club, where kids can tell their own individual, unique, Not Perfect Hack Club story. It's one thing for us to hear Michael Jordan's or Oprah Winfrey's or Walt Disney's, but it all really becomes alive when we can hear the students themselves voicing their own experiences.
I want to add also that I think diversity and appreciation for differences is vital to this concept of being not perfect, because if you have a one-size-fits-all, you're not able to really see, just like what Dan was saying, you know, let the kids talk to other kids, which leads to what we're doing next, which is the Not Perfect Hack Club Blog It, and our wonderful friend here, Beverly Ladd, is part of that as well. And what we're managing to do is connect classrooms around the world so kids can do just that, talk to each other. We want to get out of the way. Let's see what they say. What do they ask? What do they want to know? We're going to read the Not Perfect Hack Club book so they have something to talk about and get started, but where will they go? We don't know, but we're sure excited to find out.
Well, that's so good, because that very much matches the theme of what I've put together, and I was hoping to see. Leading on from Jenna, we'll pass over to Bev. And Bev, would you be able to share with us exactly what you are creating as part of this team for the Not Perfect Hack Club Blog It? Also talk to us about some of the other areas that you've been connecting globally, because I know you are. I connected with you probably originally about 6 months ago on Twitter, and then more recently through our first Skype call together. But yeah, some of the other adventures you've been leading your class on with Global Connections.
Yeah. So it started about 3-4 years ago when I was like my first teacher for my district to start my Twitter account, and I let my students start tweeting, and that was like not the norm. So because I wanted my kids to connect with other kids, I wanted them to tweet with other kids and not just tweet to a teacher. Or I wanted to make the learning more authentic for them. So if they had a question, why not go ask a kid in that country or whatever it may be, instead of asking me or going to Google and looking for it. So I started doing that and Skyping. So an example, our first, my first Skype that really hooked me was we were doing a Christmas around the world, and I wanted to connect my kids to a class in Sweden, so to let them hear how they celebrate Christmas. So that started the whole process for me, and we were pen pals and whatnot. So it led to this whole global collaboration thing for me, where I love connecting my students to other students and working on global projects, whether it's working on fairy tales through Google Docs or doing a reading over Skype, whatever it may be. I just love to connect the learners to make the learning more authentic for them. My latest endeavor was in March, when I did a 24-hour Skype-a-thon. So we Skype for 24 hours.
24 hours, wow.
Yeah. So 24 hours non-stop Skyping, 33 Skype calls, 26 countries in 24 hours. And that was the most precious 24 hours of my life. Getting to see those kids connect with other kids that we had done projects on throughout the year. And so we had topics about each Skype call. But at the end of each Skype call, the kids would get to extend their learning and ask other questions that they were interested in. And that was some of the moments that were so vivid to me, like the kids were talking to each other in Chinese, or talking to each other about guinea pigs. And did you know in Ecuador they eat guinea pigs, and we have a class pet guinea pig. So that was yeah, it was just those kind of moments when the kids
could have been lunch.
Yeah, the kids made those connections, and I think one of the things that the kids thought was so cool was they were actually in. So we started on Thursday, but they were in Friday before it was actually Friday for us. So they were time traveling, which it just makes so much learning more relevant, because after the 24 hours, we were able to look back and refer to those moments about the Skype-a-thon, and it just made the rest of the year so much more precious because we had something to connect it to. So it was just a wonderful experience for my kids. And then the blogging challenge, I love to see the kids get comments from, and the kids love getting comments from all the kids around the world. And I think kids like to write to kids more than they like to write to their teacher, or just for anything purposeful. So I knew Jenna, and I approached her with this idea of the blogging challenge, and she was like gung-ho for it. So I was so excited. And so we are just going to try to connect kids through this blogging challenge and let them blog with each other around Jenna's new book that's coming out next week, soon, really soon. So we're really excited to connect kids to the blogging challenge and let them Skype together if possible. You know, just let them collaborate and just, like Jenna said, just see where it takes us.
So I know you also use Twitter a lot as well. I've heard of it, of a maths challenge that's also coming up in the next couple of months.
Yes. So I'm doing a global math Twitter challenge. You can look up the hashtag. It's GMTTC. So me and my friend Heidi in Tennessee this past year, we would exchange math problems. So my kids would tweet a question and her kids would answer it, and vice versa. And so this year we decided, hey, let's expand on the idea and get more classes connected. And that's what we're just trying to do. We're just trying to get kids and other teachers connected. So we have a sign-up sheet where they can go and pick a week and tweet out questions, and other classes all around the world can tweet back answers. It's just a really great, way to get the kids connected and make learning relevant and authentic, and it's going to be great. I'm really excited about it.
Do you mind just telling us, probably, obviously this doesn't always work for you, what's probably one of the most laughable mistakes sort of thing that you have come across when you've tried to globally connect? Because that's something that a lot of educators, they'll be going, okay, I love the idea of global connections, but what happens if it doesn't work?
You know what? I mean, it's never not worked. I've had those moments where it didn't work out as well as I thought it would, as far as and I think it's just because the teacher, like, I had an expectation, the teacher had their expectation, but it wasn't very planned out. Maybe the communication part wasn't as well, and that was because it was a different culture. So I just think having different opportunities to email, more communication up front before you do the project is definitely it helps.
Yeah.
I mean, I know with my 24-hour Skype-a-thon, I spent a year planning it and only missed one Skype call. So that communication piece just is very vital when you're going across time zones and cultural differences. It's just really important.
And I suppose it goes back to what Jenna and Marty were saying. It doesn't always work, but if you've got your not perfect hat on, you learn from it and you go, okay, it's okay that there's mistakes and errors. So
yeah, and you know what? Those mistakes they're great for the kids to see, because it just gives them an opportunity to see how we're different and how we're the same as well. So it's just, you know, having the issues comes up when I had those issues. The kids knew about it. I mean, I'm pretty open with my kids, and so we had to, it just leads for opportunities to discuss it, and leaves the door open for a learning opportunity for them as well. So it's not a mistake. It's just a learning opportunity for everyone involved.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Bev. I'm gonna ask the man hiding underneath the screen, Brett, if you could come off mute. Brett, you are the creator of Aussie Ed, which is a Twitter chat. You're also a very, very passionate global educator. I'm just wondering if you could share for us a little bit about your story and what prompted you to get so heavily involved with global education and some of the initiatives you've been doing recently as an educator.
All right, first up, I'll just apologise because I was looking down because I was rebuilding a Lego that my boys were playing with, so doing that. And before I go any further, just within arm shot, Jenna, if you have a look here, I have just sitting next to me. So that's one of Jenna's books there. So starting with that very soon. But look, I wanted to talk a little bit about obviously global connections, and that's why a lot of us are here to talk now. And for me, a big part of that all began with a blog that I wrote a fair while ago that was all about Transformers and Optimus Prime, would you believe? And I wrote an article called What Optimus Prime Could Teach Us About the BYOD program. Now, BYOD bringing your own device and working with technology in classrooms, and broaden that out a little bit and then start to think of not just BYOD, but all technology and all use in schools. Now, the big thing was, you've got, when you look at Transformers, you've got your Decepticons, the baddies, and you've got your Autobots, the goodies. And they're both very, very skilled. They're both technologically advanced. They both have a lot of prowess, a lot of skill, but one has empathy and one does not. And really, the only two things that separate Autobots and Decepticons is that either empathy or lack thereof. And I look at the way schools are working, and I look at the way an education system is going, and we are becoming more high-tech and more in tune with our devices and more able to pick up something and get the entire access to the entire collective of human knowledge just in our pockets. But what does that mean? And what sort of generation are we creating? So I think there's a real big emphasis, similar to what Dan was saying before, about we need to create empathy with our technology. So how do we do that? We need to do that in a practical sense, because if I'm looking at people, if I'm teaching students and I want to look at say I'm high school geography, and I want to look at the earthquake and all of that sort of stuff that happened in Nepal, I don't want to just look at statistics. I don't want to just look at history. I don't want to look at graphs. If you're looking at the Ebola outbreak and all the devastation there, we don't want to quote numbers. We don't want to develop pie graphs and all that sort of stuff. We want children that can connect with that data, that information can mean something on a completely different level, and they're inspired to go on and be more and create a better world. And that's my vision. That's my big hope. So it's easy to say that, though. A lot of people get up and they talk about global collaboration and global connections, but you've put together a pretty nice team here, Brian, of people who are actually doing it. And I've got just now probably the two easiest buy-ins to global connections, because a lot of the things that people do is they say, yes, that's awesome, I want to bring empathy and I want to globally connect, but it's really scary to take that first step. And I do like what we're doing now and have a talk with people all over the world. But first step, easiest buy-in, and it is absolutely, it's a classic old book. I remember reading it when I was a boy, and it is part of the longest running global collaboration project online there is. In fact, it was actually started, I'll make sure I get the day right, in 1995. So an online literacy collaboration project, and it was a man called Dale Hubert, and it is all to do with Flat Stanley. So Stanley Lamb Chop, a really simple book, and if you haven't read it, you grab it because it doesn't take all that long to read, and the kids absolutely love it. But basically, a young boy, very good for elementary teachers, for primary school teachers like myself. Young boy woke up one morning and the pinboard that his dad had put up squashed him, and it was an inch thick, and he goes on all sorts of adventures, and his friend has moved to California, so he hops himself in an envelope, folds himself up, and goes off to visit his friend. Now, what you can do, though, is you read that with your class, then you get nice little cutouts of your Flat Stanley, and you just need to, there's a thousand different templates online. You print it off, you can even color code it, the kids can draw on it. You reach out, you can either do it via the project with teachers who have already registered and said, yes, I'm happy to have someone send me a Flat Stanley, but you can actually post with your children, put Flat Stanley in there, send Flat Stanley all over the world from your class, and then actually have the other people take their photo, so you can have someone in London taking a photo of your class Flat Stanley with Big Ben, and you've even, if you go on the website, you can even see people like Barack Obama and holding up their Flat Stanley. So super simple way of global collaboration 101. If you're a little bit worried, too nervous to go the whole hog, start jumping online and collaborating, it's a really simple way just to sort of dip the toe in and get going. Now, the other one that Brian has asked me to talk about today is a topic that one of my teammates from Aussie Ed helped create, in fact co-create with Maggie Matson, for those of you who know Maggie. So Maggie and a guy from the UK, Amjad Ali, they got together and they created this concept called Culture Box. So you can look it up, hashtag Culture Box, and at the moment they're in the second round, or coming towards the ending of the second round. So at the moment it's hashtag Culture Box 2, funnily enough. But basically, from people anywhere in the world, you sign up to Culture Box, you get in touch with either Maggie or Amjad, and you get paired with someone else around the world. Now, you might get paired with someone in the States, you could get paired with someone in Asia, you get paired with someone in Europe, you get paired with someone in Africa, South America, wherever, and you've instantly got another class, another person that you're linked with on the other side of the world. Now, what you do is you can go as hard or as gentle as you like there. The basic way to do it is you get a box, literally a box, and you ask your children, what is it that is our culture? What says us? In my case, obviously, very proud Aussie. So what is it that makes an Aussie an Aussie? What is Australian culture? So I set it as a homework task, and the kids actually Aussie, oi, oi, oi. So the kids brought in all sorts of things. They wrote a lot of stories. They brought in postcards, things they had been on. Obviously, we had a couple little toy koalas and kangaroos, but it was more than just what's on the surface. It was actually trying to look at how we live our day-to-day lives. And posted that box off and received the box back. And I was really lucky. I got paired with someone who was in the far north of England, and I ended up doing Aboriginal Dreamtime stories with him. So his class were doing we're doing folktale. So I got to share some traditional Aboriginal Indigenous stories from Australia with his class. He was able to teach my class some poetry. So it was a really beautiful way. Again, very, very simple, like global connection 101. Both of these ideas, really easy ways to get in there and make that connection and really open the world to the teacher, but yes, definitely the students. And the more, as Dan said earlier, the more interaction we have, we don't have to look far in the world, we just have to turn on the news to see that there are a lot of issues. And the more empathy and the more we understand and the more we connect and the better that we actually relate with everyone, the better chance we have for a happier world. And you know what, at the end of the day, that's what we all want, brother. So that's my little 2 cents. I hope that made sense.
That's good, Brett. Where you mentioned the little Australian teddy bears and things like that, my class has just been part of a project as well, which is called the Travelling Buddies, which is doing exactly the same sort of thing, jet setting all around the world. And it's amazing to see the reaction of the children when they see their items appear over in another country. So, Brett,
before we go, can I throw one plug in? Because I knew I was going to talk about Flat Stanley today because you asked me, but I deliberately scheduled my reading of Flat Stanley with my class to end just Friday. So I am currently on the hunt for some people around the world to post off some Flat Stanley for my own class. So if you would like to get a Flat Stanley from Mr. Salakis' class, Year 3, have a little look at down here at Mr. Salakis. Please send me a DM on Twitter, send me a message on Twitter, or get in contact with me, and I would love to send you a Flat Stanley and get some photos. My kids will love it for sure.
That's great, Brett. Thank you. Yeah, Brett, before I throw over to Viv, would you just also be able to tell us just briefly about how you use Twitter to help in professional development as well?
All right, not a problem, although I will try to be brief. It's not exactly my strength. But look, professional development, Aussie Ed is really my heart and soul. I fell in love with Twitter not so long ago, like a lot of teachers. I think I got onto Twitter a few years ago, didn't really know how to use it, certainly didn't know how to use it in a professional capacity. It took a few years for that to grow. So let that happen, and then started to see these things come out that, you know, professional groups getting together, and I thought that would be really cool if there was something like that in Australia. And there were a few little niche topics like people doing some science chats and different things, and I thought, you know, there's no real big, broad Australian sort of curriculum, Australian-based topic, and so set up this Aussie Ed, and really what blew me away was the fact that I thought it was going to be, you know, very small and self-centered, but well, not self-centered, but, you know, like in our own little corner of the world over in Australia. But what I soon learned was that as teachers, fascinated to realise that no matter, you know, different culture, irrespective of culture, different government practices, and all the things that we hear about, teachers generally, we've got the same struggles. We've got the same hurdles. We're trying to engage children. We're trying to, you know, develop our own personal understanding and professional development. We're trying to, what do we do in this case if this child has this particular need, or I've got parents who are asking for this, or I've got a school system that's imposing this, and we're all so similar, and we all have different ways of dealing with that. So Aussie Ed sort of evolved to be one much larger than just a hashtag, much larger than a Twitter chat, but at its heart, it's about connecting with as many people as possible, bringing in as many different experts as possible, and really trying to engage people and learn from each other. And the way we try to do that is, you know, in different forums, but also trying to give teachers the ability to be in charge of their own professional development. And I think when we look at the new paradigm, that's going to be one of the serious differences in the new world, in the new way of teaching, because when in the past, you know, systems have dictated what we learn, we now have the freedom to take our own learning, and, you know, and that's going to be one of the real blessings. And then obviously how we manage that officially is going to be a challenge. We do it via digital badges and open badges through Mozilla, but there are going to be lots of different ways to manage that sort of thing, but that's going to be one of the real hallmarks of education in the next 10, 15 years, I'd say.
That's great, Brett. And yeah, talking about the new paradigm, I know Viv I'll get you to come off mute because you. I met you through Asia Ed, and I know that using Twitter, you've been able to inspire a whole bunch of teachers at your previous school. Can you just share with us more about what you were doing as part of that to build the professional development around yourself?
Okay, well, excuse me if I suddenly go on mute. It's because I've been coughing and spluttering. I arrived back in New Zealand 2 weeks ago and managed to get myself the flu. Yay! What a welcoming home. Recently arrived back from Hong Kong, and I spent 5 years in a Hong Kong international school, and that's probably when I really started using Twitter. You know, Brian talked about how he used it. Being an expat and suddenly removed from all of your networks really showed me how powerful Twitter can be. So I used that an awful lot, just myself personally, making connections, and is how I met you guys through Asia Ed and Aussie Ed. And then at school they decided, as part of one of the strategies that they had, was that they wanted to encourage teachers to tweet. But they wanted teachers to tweet about what was happening in the classroom. So all of a sudden that caused this just, everyone was a bit concerned about, Twitter, because, a lot of people still think that on Twitter you can see what Miley Cyrus is doing and nobody's interested in that. So that was the kind of attitude that we had. So what I thought, as part of my role of technology coach, was how am I going to get around this in a quick and easy way, which is going to make it non-threatening but pull people along, because basically the imperative was there. It wasn't, hey guys, would you like to use Twitter? It's, hey, we're using Twitter because we want to promote what we're doing in the classrooms out to the parent community. So that was the sort of the parameter of how we had to work. And so I basically decided I would do what we've done here in New Zealand ages and ages ago, which was have these little drop-in sessions early in the morning. Come and drop in. I'm going to start talking about Twitter. If you come in for half an hour on this day, I'll provide the coffee and the muffins and all of those kinds of things. And that sort of was a way where people didn't feel threatened, and it wasn't a sort of a workshop after school where everyone was sort of dragging their heels. And at that stage I then thought, okay, so how can I leverage my amazing PLN? Because these guys are the ones who are going to help me convince this group of teachers that being on Twitter is very powerful. Being on Twitter is going to really help you connect your students with everybody else in the globe. And it's okay, it's really okay to use. We had a lot of teachers who would use Skype, get involved in some Skyping projects. We actually got classrooms blogging as well. But it was that public thing about Twitter that sort of was the block. So I just basically sent a message out to my PLN and said, hey guys, and did some DMing, tap, tap, tap. please can you pop in at such and such a time? I'm going to be running Twitter sessions with my some staff that are going to come in, and it was great. And we got people coming up just with ideas and questions. It was you, Brian, wasn't it? That one of the staff, was it you or was it Craig? I'm not sure. Somebody said you seem to spend a lot of time on Twitter. What about your family? and the response came back and says, yes, well, I have agreed with my wife that I do turn off Twitter at a certain time, and those kind of things. Teachers just thought, they're having the same kind of issues that we might have with technology, like, get out of that phone, why are you always on your email, etc., etc. Because our whole environment we have was very technology rich, and being in Hong Kong, every second person's wandering around like this with their phone. It's just it's just dangerous walking around in the middle of Hong Kong, because people just don't look up and they just bump into you because they've got their face in their phone. so that's what we did. And then we set up hashtags for the classes. And when we took some year 5s and 6s away on camp, we just snapped photos and did a hashtag and sent it out. And the teachers started feeling a bit more comfortable with that. And probably the key to that was by grabbing them and showing them in the next session how they could grab a hashtag and throw it into Storify. And then suddenly you've got this wonderful whole commentary about an event. Yeah. And that was then, hey parents, even if you don't use Twitter, here's the link, go and have a look. And man, you could see the light bulbs going ping, ping, ping. So I think, Twitter is the biggest staff room in the world, and it's just brilliant for your personal learning. It's brilliant for students to connect with and make those connections from a cultural point of view. But it's just the biggest staff room in the world, because any minute in the world you can find somebody sitting there with a cup of coffee, ready to chat back, and that's what our staff, our teachers learnt. And really, it was just my PLN that did it for me, so it was magic.
Prime example of that, exactly what you were talking about, Viv, was a couple of weeks ago, one of my kindergarten teachers came to me and said, we would love to do a virtual excursion with the Carl Museum. And I know a few on the line here can remember me posting that out to my PLN. And within half an hour, I had a response from someone saying, this is the contact that we have at the Carl Museum. The virtual excursion hasn't happened yet, but the plans are definitely in play, and it takes half an hour. Yet they're in America, we're in Australia, so it was so powerful being able to have that opportunity and use that PLN in that way.
Yeah, one of our year 2 teachers, well, the whole year group, was studying an IPC unit and it was all about transport. And they go and they travel around Hong Kong and look at the different modes of transport, etc. And then one of the wonderings they had was, how do other people get to school or to work? What's unique about us, and maybe what's something we don't have? So I said, well, let's just knock up a Google form and look at some questions that we might want to ask, and then I said I can then fire it out to my PLN. So that was before the whole school wasn't involved in Twitter. So the students all got together and we decided on some questions and talked about the whole, what kind of information do we need and what's our audience. Created these forms, and I just fired them out to my PLN. And in the morning, and all the parents got the link as well. In the morning, they could go in and they could look at the Google form building, because overnight people had leapt in from like the UK, from America, from India, from New Zealand, and popped in information so the kids could see what their mums and dads and their aunts and uncles and grandparents had written. But then there was a whole bunch, and the one was amazing because it was from India, and it was, hey, one of the ways we get to school is on an elephant. And of course that just starts amazing discussions coming up. And one of the students wanted to know, they said, let's ask a question. If you had any choice in the world, what kind of transport would you like to magically have? And that was phenomenal. These year 2s just asking that question, and people were coming up with all sorts of amazing ideas, and it was just so powerful to see the instant information coming in, and then of course obviously you could go and make graphs and stuff like that of the data and do the maths and all those kinds of things. But just the kids' face when they walked in the door and they were excitedly looking at all the new information that they'd got. So very powerful.
I think I'd like to have an elephant to ride to work to school as well. It would be quite impressive. All right, well, thank you, Viv. I know a lot of our educators that I have on the line so far today have been elementary or primary school educators, but I do have a special friend of mine, Alex Lalong. She is not a primary educator. She is a high school teacher. She's head of English at her school. So, Alex, would you be able to share with us, from your perspective, what have you been doing to globally connect high schoolers and also for yourself as a professional?
Firstly, just kia ora koutou. So I'm Alex Lalong. Unfortunately, I'm not the head of English at my school yet.
Sorry, Alex.
But yeah, definite plans to eventually one day in the future do that. I also teach social studies, and probably in my social studies class has been. Sorry, this is Mia, my dog. She's very annoying, but we love her. So in my social studies class, we tend to use Twitter quite a lot. Just yesterday, we sent a message to TV1 in New Zealand, as well as Oprah and Ellen and a few other important people to get the message out about invisible children and the work that Joseph Kony has done to, get rid of so many children and abduct them. And my social studies class are really strong activists, and they're 14, 15-year-old kids, and they're just real passionate about the world around them. And so I find that the whole idea of connecting them globally to what's going on around the outside world, not just what's happening in our small city, Rotorua, or around New Zealand, is really effective to try to make them think what they possibly could do, because it's not only being aware, but it's actually putting some action into what they could do and how they could prevent certain things happening. Same thing goes with my English classes. They're all, I've got 4 different English classes this year, and they all have a certain effect in terms of connecting with other people around the world. So we've had a couple of goes at Mystery Skype. If any of you guys want to do that with us, be prepared. We're in New Zealand, so the time zones don't always work with us. So that would be really cool if we could do that, or Google Hangout. I'm happy for either way. My students are just really passionate about finding out more about the world around them. So looking forward to doing that. Also, I support completely what Brett and Viv have already said about using Twitter as a professional learning base, because we need to enable ourselves to find individual, personalised and relevant PD. And I know I'm only in my 4th year teaching, but I think for me it's honestly been the best PD I've ever had in my entire life. Having the opportunity to ask somebody across the world, or across the next town, who can tell me more about something that I'm actually feeling really uncomfortable or unsure about, and not feeling like I'm going to have my proverbial head bitten off. Not that it would, but being sure about the fact that I have a safe, happy environment that I'm surrounding myself with. And so on my blog, I tend to talk quite a bit about what I'm learning about. So I just want to share a couple of things with you all. So I'll just share my screen now. Okay, so this is my blog, evolutionandimagination.blogspot.co.nz. And so on here, if you go onto this blog here, you can go down.
It's coming up. Alex?
Not yet?
Doesn't seem to be coming up. Oh, here it is. It's up there now.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so so on here, this is my blog here, and I've got some slides down here that I recently presented at Hamilton EdcampGlobal on the idea of building your PLN. So if you want to just go ahead and do so. As well, I've added the tweet sheet that I give out to people in our community when I'm sharing different things about Twitter. I'd also like to just shout out to Tyson, Kimberly Tyson, and sorry, there's one more person that I've added stuff from on this cheat sheet here. So this is probably my main focus when I'm doing any sharing or reflecting on what I'm doing. And I find that blogging is a really useful tool. So I use it quite a lot. Of course, there's also my Twitter account that is also very useful. I have people throughout the world that I'm following, people that follow me from around the world too. which has been pretty cool, and making those global connections has been beyond worthwhile. Some of the other ways that I connect as well is through Connect Rotorua. So in New Zealand we have different EdcampGlobal that happen throughout the country. Sorry, that's my battery. And also we share through that, and so we're connecting consistently quite often throughout the country. And just one more moment of your time. I know when I first started teaching, I was very centered on this idea of having, you know, a small amount of people that I could consider my support network. You know, my head of department, my mentor, the people that were starting to teach me, my buddy teachers that I could rely on if I had any issues in my class, or other teachers that were just learning how to teach as well. And then, of course, you know, you've got your outside network. And to me, my biggest support network has honestly been through my friends and colleagues on Twitter, as well as the people that I have met through Google Plus communities. I can't push it enough that it's so important to become a connected educator, and we so often stop ourselves from having that opportunity, and I think that's important to open ourselves up to looking at what's actually out there, because I know that there are a lot of teachers in my school in particular and around in our city or in our country that don't actually know the value of connecting. And so we're still learning, we're still developing ourselves professionally and reflecting constantly, but I think if we did it more in a global connected space, then we'd have more impact and more worthwhile connections coming out of them. But yeah, that's me.
That's great, Alex. Thank you very much. I know how hard you do work, and how reflective you are as an educator. So that's so powerful. Just a bit of a shout out. I know I've got a colleague who's just joined us on the line, and he's spending a lot of time on connecting globally, but using Genius Hour. So I know a lot of projects that are out there are powerful and can be connected globally. He's got one student who who has dyslexia, and his big passion project is he wants to tell the world about dyslexia from a child's perspective. So global connections, that can be done through a project as much as it can be face-to-face. Just before we finish, I'm going to share my screen and go up onto a video which I did earlier this week with Craig Kemp. Unfortunately, Craig was away today, and he will be hosting a Twitter chat tomorrow morning for EduCamp, and I know many of our educators who have been on the line today are also hosting throughout the weekend on different Twitter chats or Google Hangouts. So please check out on the EduCamp online website to find out the schedule. But I'd just like to put up the video that I did with Craig talking about mystery hangouts. But until we next meet, thank you very much, and here comes the video. Right, so you should have it there. Craig Kemp from Singapore School, and Craig, obviously tomorrow is your first day of new school. A bit scared, excited, I suppose.
Yeah, it's thanks for having me, Brian, and apologies for having to pre-record this. I've got a big weekend coming up, but I am very excited. Tomorrow's a new day at my new school, big opportunity, so I'm raring to go. Very excited.
So I know you're very well connected on a global scale. Would you mind telling us a little bit about this new initiative of mystery locations? I know it is quite a large and growing activity throughout the United States, and here in Australia there are educators who are coming on board with it. But you've been doing a lot for a while now in Singapore. Can you just share with us a little bit about the theory behind it and how it actually outworks in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started doing mystery locations through the Mystery Skype project about probably 18 months, 2 years ago now, and we were one of the first to adopt it, and it's just been a huge success. So basically, the whole idea is connecting your classroom to the world. So for me, someone who's really passionate about giving my students the opportunity to connect outside four walls, mystery location is absolutely perfect, because I can form a connection through my social media connections, like through Twitter, Facebook, Google+, to find communities of people around the world that are willing to connect. Time zones play a factor, of course. So for me, within Asia, Australasia, and into some parts of Middle East are fine, which gives us a huge diverse group of people to connect with. So the whole idea is you connect your class with another class somewhere in the world, and it's, I guess, a global guessing game using Skype or Google Hangouts. You can structure it as you'd like, so you pre-organise that with your teachers, and the whole idea is that students get real life learning, rather than opening up a book, an atlas, and teachers telling them where parts of the world are. They're exploring the world in real time with real people through question asking. So using tools like Google Maps to help find locations, and using question skills and research skills to narrow it down.
So students are learning about, obviously, other cultures as well as other locations. What's some of the wow factors you've experienced for your students when they have been playing and using mystery locations as a teaching tool?
Absolutely. So we've tried a lot. We've done just normal hangouts and mystery locations with schools in Australia and New Zealand and throughout Asia. I think some of the most exciting ones is when we've branched out a little bit and taken a bit of a risk. So we've connected our language. So at my school, all students learn second languages from preschool. They're all learning Chinese. So we've connected our Chinese department with schools in China where the students are doing a mystery location in Mandarin, which is absolutely incredible. We've also done one with a school in Pakistan, a very public school in Pakistan, where the students' handle of English was very poor. But it really was an eye-opener for our kids to see them working their way through a process where they are fluent speakers of English, but the people that we're connecting with were just learning, and to see the perseverance and empathy that our students showed throughout the process was just incredible. So those are probably the big highlights, as well as a couple of mystery locations where schools in the US and the UK have been doing 24-hour Skype-thons, and we've been able to connect with them.
So obviously, did they always work? Were there times of success as well as failure?
Completely, yeah. Just like any technological tool, there's always those times when you think you've set everything up perfectly and the connection just doesn't happen, like we experienced before, or the other school tells you that they've got a complete grasp of the concept and then it just falls to pieces, or your students just have a bad day and it just doesn't work. So it's always happened. There's always those little bits and those nuggets, I think, but for me, that's where I think the real learning happens, when you see those mistakes or those errors and the students have the opportunity to and fix their mistakes without a teacher jumping on and telling them what they should do or what they need to do. So giving the students a bit of voice.
That's fantastic. So moving on from mystery locations, you're using Twitter as well as your own blog. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use those as forms of global connections?
Yeah, I guess for me, my sort of journey of becoming a globally connected educator happened probably a couple of years ago, really, 2 or 3 years ago, when I was introduced to Twitter 4 years ago. I jumped on, hated it, and was off within a week. And then it took me about another year to figure out that there was more to Twitter than Kim Kardashian and some NBA stars. And I figured out that really all I was on there for was to develop a professional learning network and to be connected. So about 2 years ago, I sort of went through my journey from lone wolf to hunting with the pack, is what I call it, from being that person, that little boy from New Zealand, where I need to open up and get connected to the real world of education. So I started a blog as well and started sharing my journey and my ideas, things that I do in the classroom, things that work, things that don't work, and tried to give people back really what the struggles that I had when I was trying to start on Twitter, when I was trying to get connected with people. So what could I do to help other people? And now for me, I'm connected with thousands of people all over the world, and not only does it open up opportunities for me professionally, but it opens up my eyes to the world of education and different corners of the globe, and that just inspires me to make a difference in the small part of the world that I'm able to work in.
That's great. And yeah, you definitely have an influence. You run a weekly Twitter chat, What is School, which it seems like it's very, very actively involved and actively engages a lot of teachers across the globe. How other ways could teachers potentially get in contact with you if they were interested in finding out more?
Yeah, absolutely. So What is School is on every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, which is Friday morning, 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. New Zealand, 7 a.m. for me in Singapore and Perth. But I guess that's one chat out of hundreds that are available. And for me, getting involved in Twitter chats was a real eye-opener. Like, whether it was an hour-long chat, a 30-minute chat, a slow chat, which happens a question every day, like in Asia Ed, or a 15-minute Spark chat, whatever it was, I had the opportunity to connect in the real time with real educators who had the same passions and wanted to do the same things that I wanted to do. So for me, my biggest advice is to get online and get involved in those chats. Get involved in the live hangouts like this that are happening, and just put yourself out there. Take a risk, and don't be scared, because everybody that I've ever come across on Twitter is open to helping you out. So follow other people, listen to other people, get involved, get connected. There's a great list of Twitter chats out there that you can have a look at as well, that tells you every chat possible at any possible time that you can have in front of you, and just jump on. And yeah, I guess that's where I would start.
Well, thank you very much. It's been great to have this discussion with you. And yeah, obviously on Sunday morning Australian time this coming week, you are hosting a special EdcampGlobal Twitter chat, which will definitely, from my understanding, build on what we've spoken about. Is that correct?
And that's correct, yeah. I've just, you can read more about it on my blog. I've just posted the questions up there tonight. So it's up there at mrcampnz.com. The Twitter chat, the hashtag that we're going to be using is Global Ed, and it's going to be at 7 a.m. Singapore time on Sunday, which is 7 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday evening.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you again shortly.
I really appreciate it.
All right, just before just before we go, I might just throw to Jenna and Marnie. I know you are hosting a chat tomorrow as well. Can you just give us the details for the chat, the EdcampGlobal chat, if that's okay?
Emotional learning. So the hashtag is CKSEL. And we're just going to be talking about the importance of including emotional literacy with our more traditional intellectual skills, and why, how to do it and why it's important, and how we approach it, which is through animals. So it should be fun.
So
you can come, Alex, and bring your dog.
So can you just repeat the chat hashtag again, Jenna?
It's CK as in Critterkin, and then SEL, social emotional learning.
And I know, yeah, Bev's had to go, but she is also hosting another one. Brett Salakis, he is also hosting a chat later on. And I'm not sure, are any other, Viv, are you hosting it?
They're Twitter chats that we're doing. I know Bev is also doing another Twitter chat with us. It's called NPHC Blog It, which is about that global blogging event we're hosting in November. So that's another one that'll be fun.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us on EduCamp. A special shout out to Dan, to Marty, to Jenna, to Bev, to Brett, to Craig, to Viv, and to Alex, and also to Sunny from the British International School in Nepal. Many of us that were on our conversation today had been supporting the British International School in their efforts after the earthquake. So thank you very much, and enjoy either sleeping or the rest of your day. See you later on.
Thank you, Brian.